Let me get it going. We're recording this here. Not sure if all of you got to see the video. My dad and I did an interview yesterday, and it's about an hour video, quite a bit of content. We actually did a practice run before that. That one ran about 2 hours, so you got the condensed version with the hour. And hopefully there was some great value, great information there. Thank you, Dad, for your time just in sharing all this great information, because I know it's going to impact a lot of people. And this is really about us pulling together as an industry, especially at this time right now, where, you know, we feel disconnected. We can't do our job the way that we used to. So we got to figure out how to change it up, how to stay connected, get the information out there, help each other out. And as you referenced in that video, this isn't the time to hoard information, hoard toilet paper. It's about sharing the information so that we can keep this market moving, because it's pretty, you know, just to be blunt, pretty scary times, you know, just in terms of providing for the family. So Dad, anything you'd like to add to that? And I'd be more than happy. I gave you kind of a brief, you know, background just in terms of your history, but I can share a little bit more about that. But anything before I share that?
No, we can just kind of let this thing evolve. You know, we'll go from there. I'll be happy to give you what knowledge I do know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I'm unaware of, but I think between all the minds in here, we can come up with a pretty good product for the sake of this training session. Yeah. I just appreciate you putting this together and getting to meet some of these folks and hopefully answering a few questions. That's
awesome. And I'd like to also just announce some of the people that are on here. So everybody, you could either be muted or unmuted. We're okay either way. You know, if you're like my family and you got kids screaming and yelling in the background, Danielle actually took them out to go run a UPS run, but they're going to stay in the car. They're going to be safe, so they're going to be good. But it should be quiet here for at least 30 minutes. But I see Kathy Gray. Welcome for joining us.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that video, by the way.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's and Kathy, I know you are you are a proven professional in the field. You provide loans, and you actually, did you work with VCCDC for a bit as well?
No.
Okay, but you're familiar.
But I've helped some of their clients. Yeah.
Right. So yes. I knew your name was coming up while I was working over there. So.
Oh, okay.
In a positive way, just in terms of you do good work for people, and I know you mentioned on the YouTube video that you love working with VA buyers. I guess before we get started, do you mind just sharing, you know, some of your experience with VA buyers?
Yes. Okay. Well, I've been at Guild for 11 years, and I do my share of VA loans, and I enjoy working with VA buyers. And I see their struggles when they write offers and they're not accepted. I talk to agents that don't know the guidelines. I educate them. I send them as many flyers as I can. I answer their questions to get that VA offer accepted, because they are truly, I feel, the better loan out there. You can't go wrong. Like your video says, their income is guaranteed.
Right.
You know, so the default, even though it's zero down, the default ratio is like almost zero. So you can't go wrong, and you just have to, you know, appreciate our veterans. I had a VA a few years ago, a VA buyer that could not find a lender to lend him because he had a VA loan in Texas. Well, I knew that he could get a loan here because he had unused, you know, disability left over. So he has a VA loan in Texas, and now he has a VA loan here. It can work. And for him to tell me that he had gone to other lenders and they didn't know, that proves your video. That is true. A lot of loan officers, they don't understand VA. So I really appreciate my military families a lot.
Thank you. And thank you for your service to our military families, because we know what they do every single day in terms of sacrifice. And we talked about a little bit in the video. It's not just those that are serving, the entire family is impacted by it. And we have a family we're helping out right now currently. And it was such a challenge, such an awakening for myself. And I just completed the MRP, Military Relocation Professional Designation. And it was like I'm learning about it, and then it's happening in real life. And I thought I had a
Yes.
pretty good understanding growing up as a Navy brat for 23 years, what it was like, you know, moving and having to make new friends. And it was, I mean, it's like, it really was God testing me and showing
Yeah.
me, look, you can't give up.
No.
You have to be patient. You have to understand there's so much for these military buyers for what they're going through. It's
Right.
not just the stress of moving and all the unknowns and trying to learn a new market. I mean, we
Right.
literally saw so many houses. My parents actually helped show property. We had a little small vacation, which I'm sure you appreciated. You know, the small trip we had out to the mountains that was already scheduled. Went out for a few days, and my parents were out showing multiple properties, and we're going through all the challenges of what that entailed. But
Right.
most importantly, it's, you know, just when you see that they're solid, and you're trying to convince the other agent that this is the best loan, best buyer possible, then COVID-19 hits. You know, I mean,
Right.
it already hit, but where the stay-at-home order happens, and literally the market shifted in a day. On that Friday, the market shifted. We wrote our offer like Wednesday or Thursday. They think they have the upper hand at that point. Our offer gets accepted. Days later, it shifts to our hand. And now it's like, okay, now how are we going to handle it? Are we going to ask for a $20,000 credit? Are we going to, you know, do it just because we can right now? And I had to, you know, counsel my client again and just, you know, get back to reality of us all working together to make this happen. So thank you for sharing those thoughts, Kathy. Anything you'd like to build on that, Dad?
No, just that first of all, again, Kathy, thank you for what you're doing. To see a loan officer who gets it means a lot,
Yes.
because there's so many loan officers who do good jobs, but they may not have either the passion or they might have the passion or just the inability to draw that type of client. So it's nice that you put yourself in an arena where you can work with these clients and you
Right.
understand the challenges that come with them. So
And one more thing to add to your video is that we do now, VA makes it a requirement that we have to ask the client, and a loan officer actually, at least at Guild, a loan officer has to certify in a letter that we have asked the veteran if there's any pending claims. So right there, we would know, you know, whether they're eligible for the funding fee or not, or they have a claim pending, or, you know, are they waiting on their percentage, you know, so that's a good thing.
You know, I did see something, just doing a little bit more research for this just within the last day or so, about retroactive funding fees being provided. So I don't know if that's something that's in process, if it's something that's going to be approved. But in case you're unaware what we're talking about, if a veteran has a disability, you know, the 10% or higher, or now a Purple Heart if they're active duty,
Right.
they can have the funding fee waived.
Exactly.
What I was led to believe in the past, if they hadn't applied for that and had the service-connected disability actually decided in their favor, that it was too late. I've closed, can't tell you how many vets who had never filed a claim, and then eventually it would come up, well, can I do it now and be retroactively paid? And at that point, from what I was led to believe, the answer was no. But now I have seen it in writing where they talk about in process. So I think what that's leading to is that they're at least entertaining the thought, if they haven't already approved it, of taking people with, I'm sure there would be a time frame. If you've used it within the last X amount of months or years, you can apply for it.
Yes.
But it's a pretty significant amount of money. And my math was terrible yesterday. I did
it's a percentage of the loan.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, it's something that it's a valuable tool for you to have as an agent to understand just that little bit of information. So when you start talking to your clients, that they know that you're really there looking out for their behalf and trying to save them every penny they can, because most of these folks are pretty strapped, because we all are, to begin with.
Yes. And Brandon, I sent you some flyers on VA. Those are the same flyers. Whenever I have a VA client, I always send them to both agents, the listing and the buyer.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll pull those up. And it's so some of the things, just to kind of reemphasize with the funding fee, the importance, and I know I did it on the video too, but The key to understand with the funding fee is pretty much the cost, right? The biggest cost that the military will pay upfront, because again, they're not paying mortgage insurance, which typically prices out here. That's $200, $300, $400 a month, which increases their purchasing power. So they pay that funding fee up front. If they get to waive it, you're talking 7, 10. I mean, my dad had a situation, it was $19,000 for the funding fee. So there's many transactions that buyers are purchasing homes, and because either the loan officer or the real estate agent or both aren't aware of the fact that this veteran actually had 10% disability, or he's active or she's active and has a Purple Heart, is actually able to waive that huge cost. So just like we're trying to always negotiate credits towards closing costs so that they can keep more money, in pocket, this helps potentially save the transaction, because now with the credits that are trying to be negotiated through the transaction, that buyer now potentially could have 7, 10 already in their pocket that they're not having to put towards the loan. So it's huge. It's big on many different aspects, and that's why we reemphasize it. So it's a good question at an open house. If you meet somebody who's serving or has served and they say they're doing a VA loan and they're retired, one of the first questions you want to ask them, don't mean to intrude, but this is a very important question. Do you potentially have a disability rating? And sometimes they say, no, I haven't filed my disability, but I'm pretty sure I should get at least 10+%. And then my dad, if you don't mind just sharing what you do in that situation, what do you do? If somebody hasn't filed for their disability, what are the steps with that?
Well, a lot depends on what my relationship is with them. If I feel fairly comfortable that they would take some advice from me. Most veterans are open-minded to it. Once they see that you really don't have an agenda, they might open up. It can be a personal thing, especially if someone's thinking that they may have a PTSD type issue or they're very hypersensitive to it to begin with. So I just try to preface the conversation with, just for future reference, if you haven't thought about it, because I've had gentlemen, I have one guy, I'm listing a house over in Camarillo, and he comes out, he's a neighbor, and he was in the Bikini Islands atomic bomb testing area. And he sees my veteran sign out there, and we're talking a little bit. And, we got to mention about, thank you for your service and all that. And I don't know how it came up in conversation, because he was one of the neighbors. I wasn't looking to, impede on him or assume or, presume anything. And he had mentioned, it just came out of the blue that, one of my jobs was doing this. And then I think I just naturally said, oh, so, VA's helping you out with a lot of, post-military situations. He goes, well, no, not really. And then I started asking him, I said, so did you ever file a claim? He goes, no, I'm probably too old for that. And he kind of laughed. I said, well, sir, with all due respect, I don't want to assume anything, but you may have some medical issues, because he was at one of the ground zero sites where they were testing atomic bombs in the 50s and all the way up into the early 60s. And he's had a lot of thyroid issues and things like that. So, make a long story short, I gave him a reference in terms of the point of contact, and he's going to submit a claim. So some of the challenges are some people just don't think that they qualify for it. I've had people tell me that I'm not retired, and so there's a misunderstanding there. You don't have to be retired. There's a lot of veterans in the area who did their years or 12 years or whatever, and didn't think that their body either, warranted that kind of attention. And one thing I tell them is you might be 20, 30 now, but you're going to be my age at one point, and bodies do break down. So kind of do yourself a favor and at least look into it. And it doesn't show a sign of weakness or that you're asking for charity or anything like that. They've earned every one of these benefits. So I think the conversation is going to advance kind of based on how the situation unfolds in terms of, what they share with me. So I don't know if I would have one pat answer for that. Just kind of feel out the situation, see what they're willing to talk about. But I try to, before they leave, at least get the thought out there. You might want to contact somebody. You'd be surprised at how many times I've gotten out my phone and I've got a point of contact in there to the DAV, and I just share that on the spot. And I would share it with all of you guys as well. But it's a good piece of information to have, know some of the local affiliates for that.
If you do have, your laptop close by, we have a chat window on the side. I'm not sure if it's showing up on your screen or not, but if you can, just feel free to type that in at some point. Or if you want to share it with me, I can type it in. Do you have that, Deb?
Just one sec. I got a cough. I don't want to cough in your guys' ear.
Okay. And anytime anybody coughs or sneezes, everyone's like, "Uh-oh." Are you okay?
I'm going to give you my cooties through the phone. Yeah, we're so tuned to that.
Right.
Just the fact I got to turn away from it.
This is
yeah, I see there's I do have a chat thing here.
Yeah.
One thing I would like that, I see Laura's in the picture, and it's always nice to see her. And she also just finished her MRP, which I want to congratulate her on that.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
Equally important, she's a Navy wife. Her husband's a retired chief.
Yeah, he retired a few years back, but I actually had a question for Kathy regarding the appraisers for VA. I've had some difficulty. I was just curious if she happens to know how. Now I know the lenders don't have any control over. My understanding is that the appraisers come directly from the VA. That's correct.
VA
how many appraisers are actually designated to the Ventura County area? Do you know, or?
I wouldn't know the number, but we do have some that routinely come. So it's not like they're going to come far away. So, you get to see the names over and over, but we never know who the appraiser is until we get the report. For all the, but especially with VA is the one who assigns them directly. And right now, I don't know if a lot of appraisers are going to shy away. So just be.
Yeah, that's what I found to be the most difficult. I mean, we personally just refinanced our house, and we did it for less. I mean, it was just because the rate was fantastic. So we just did a refi on it. And this guy came out, and of course I did the RPR for him. So, I mean, I knew what the value was. We live in the Heights in Camarillo, so they're all over the place anyways. There's a house, like birds flight, literally, I mean, directly across from us, it's listed for 1.3 million, or it was. And then down the street, there is a house for 600,000. So, I mean, we're all over the map here in Camarillo Heights. But he came out, and I pulled up a list, just to give him an idea. And he's walking down the hallway, and his ringtone was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I just thought, oh my God, if I was selling my house, I would be devastated. I was thinking, oh my God. He came in at his appraisal, he came in at less than, I mean, he came in 100,000 less than what I estimated this house to be valued at. And I just went, I mean, it was more than what, obviously it was more than what we needed anyways. We were just refined for an interest rate. It didn't matter what he came in at, but I thought it would devastate our sale if we were selling our property. And it kind of made me mad. And his attitude was just, and I had seen him before. I had done business with him before. And I just thought, this guy is common in the area. And I tried to show him other comps, and it was like he was proud. And I started looking into some of this, and I realized, there's very few that the VA is sending out here. And I thought I found in showing properties and writing offers when the market's crazy, I think that's why some of the sellers are shying away from these, is because when it's 100% financing, it has to value at that 100% value. And some of the sellers are.
Were you doing a conventional refi or VA refi?
For us, we just switched over. We were conventional, and we just switched over to a VA.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why you needed an appraisal. Okay.
Yeah. We just switched to VA because it was such I think we got like 3 1/4. It was like, anytime you can save yourself.
Like 3 weeks ago before the rates went up.
Yeah. We locked in. We thought,
Congrats.
it's time to, yeah, right.
Laura,
so,
Laura, did they waive your fee?
Oh yeah. They waived the fee, and we knew, and there's been a few buyers I've worked with, like what you're discussing with the funding fee. I found resistance with some. I think some of it depends on what war they served in.
Right.
Some people that I've worked with, especially some Marines that served in Vietnam, have no interest. They don't care. They don't want to have anything to do, even if it means that they have to pay the funding fee. And, no matter how much I just try to explain, hey, do you have the ringing in the ears? That's just a common, simple thing that we can do the 10% on, and have no
That's a
interest.
great
And
point.
my dad told me, and my dad's one of them. My dad said, he goes, when I got out, he goes, they told me flat out, he didn't retire, but he served 6 years. He goes, don't expect anything from us. You're done. Thank you for your service. You're out. You're done. And I've been trying to tell my dad, you can refi with the VA. Why not do it? So I don't know.
Now,
I have a
Laura,
I
that's
question
am
a
for
working
great
on
Jim.
point.
them.
I have a question
Yeah.
for Jim. Do
Yeah.
you know how long it takes from the time they start the claim? How long it's taking VA to
You know,
let them know?
that's a very personal question to me, and I appreciate it. I have a claim right now. I finally got my appeal set up for March 20th, and I put my claim in January 15th, 2014.
Oh,
2014. I had my appeal set up. I was finally going down to LA to see my judge via video because he's in DC. And I got a call on the 17th, St. Patty's Day, saying, hey, don't worry about that. We're going to cancel this. Well, we'll get back with you down the road. And, I have to understand because of the situation. So I was telling my wife, I said, that'll be another year or two to get back to that. Now, that's not the norm. And I know President Trump has tried to put in a process where you can expedite it. I've talked to the local DAV, who's a personal friend of mine. And she says, you can submit a claim, and especially for something like this, if someone's going to be an escrow and they're trying to get the 10% for the tinnitus that Laura was referring to. And almost all of us get that. It doesn't matter what you did in the military, because we do get ringing in the ears, and it can be substantially worse than the 10%, but they'll give you the 10 flat for that, which will cover this waiver. You can get it in as quick as probably 45 to 60 days. That's predicated on a couple things. One, you have all your documentation good to go, right? You have everything that you need to submit. And two, a lot of it's going to be based on what kind of, at that particular time, influx of new submissions that they're dealing with. Because from what I gather, they haven't hired a whole lot more staff to process these things since, Trump has reinforced these new policies. So that's always a challenge, is they're just understaffed. I would just put out there, be a little bit weary of submitting something for the sake of getting a quick response, because if you push it hard and you're not prepared fully with all of your nexus letters, and we don't want to go too deep in all that, but all of your supporting documentation, then they'll just give you a quick no, because these raters don't really understand what they're looking at half the time, right? You can have a perfect situation in terms of the paperwork, and if you get a rater on a bad day who just doesn't quite comprehend the full impact of that, you're going to get a bad decision. Then you got to go through that appeal process, which is a major pain. That's a good question, though.
That's great. And Dad, if anybody does have any questions, any agents or loan officers or anybody in the industry, they can reach out to you directly, right?
Yeah, please do. Please do. And again, I don't know all this stuff, but I've got a little bit of a grasp on enough to know kind of where to lead you to, I think, and help you. And between folks like Laura, whose husband, has gone through some of the same issues. I see Dennis, I'm not sure what his background is, but he may or may not have some of that. But first, welcome, Dennis. I don't know. Are you a veteran by any chance? And if you're not, that's cool. I'm glad you're here. But if you are, you may want to add to that.
Yeah, actually, we went down. Go ahead.
I'm not a veteran, but my dad is. So I wanted to hop on the call and just kind of listen. He might be in a position to buy a house eventually. I'm not sure. So just wanted to get a little tidbit of what you guys are doing.
And you know, Dennis, that may be some topic for conversation with your pops. Is, you know, Dad, without getting too personal, hey, did you ever think? And he may already have one, I don't know. But if he doesn't, have you ever thought about putting in a claim for anything? Because you'd be surprised at how many these vets can go back, and he can pull up a lot of his information right off his e-benefits account, right? And get his DD-2 his medical.
Yeah.
So he may have something there just waiting for him. Yeah, you just don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, and thank him for his service, if you would.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's and Dennis actually works with a Fidelity title. So Dennis and I, we went to high school together. I've been good friends for some time. He's was it Matt's grade, or were you in between Matt and I? You're Jason or Josh Graziani's, right?
Oh.
02. Yeah, so that's Matt and Josh Graziani. Kathy, do you know the Grazianis too?
I do. So you guys went to school with my kids.
Okay.
Chris and Lisa Gray.
Oh, I know Lisa.
He was Athlete of the Year in 2000.
Nice.
It's a small world.
Yeah. All Rio Mesa Spartans here. So
Yes.
Spartans. Got to represent. No Camarillo people on here, right? Or, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure where Laura went.
Right?
I went to school up in Ojai at Villanova, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool. Well, Dad, so we talked about a little bit just to also touch on some of those main points that a lot of people aren't aware. And actually, I guess I'll piggyback a little bit off of what you're sharing with why agents may shy away from a VA buyer, right? So I want to talk about both sides of it, and thank you for sharing that, because we want this to be as factual as possible. You're going to get, just like an appraiser with conventional FHA, any type of loan, it should be objective. It's truly subjective on who you get that walks through that door. So, and we have to prep our clients with that, no matter whether it's VA conventional. I, interesting enough, had a conventional buyer, had $280,000 down, loan amount was $155, buying in River Park at $435 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot property, and couldn't get an appraisal at $435. It came in 20 under. This was recently, and almost killed the deal. Everything is selling. 2 bedrooms are selling at $420. Then the 3 bedrooms model match were flying out days of. We went in escrow mid-January. So the appraiser was using model matches, even though there were plenty of comps and sales for similar size square footage, hit us with a $20,000 deficit. So the reason I bring that up is it's not VA FHA conventional, it's appraiser, right? So I wanted to share that first. Secondly, I just had a VA appraisal done on a recent client on a property in Ventura that our price was at $665. VA appraiser goes in there. I see all the comps, and I see that the appraiser could go towards model matches right around the 620 to 630 mark. Again, we're almost 35 higher. I questioned the agent on it. I said, do you really think we're going to have an issue? He said, no. He's like, everything's going out at 700,000. Look at the comps around here. So he's picking one street up, which is still within your half-mile, quarter-mile radius. Wasn't a model match, but very similar, but highly updated, closed at 700,000. So that's where the seller was basing this price off of, which I'm sure you were doing the same with your property as you were pulling your comps up. We got the appraisal at value 665. Appraiser went in at 10 a.m. At 4 p.m., we had a full report back at value, as is condition. I've never seen that ever. No rush, anything. This literally happened about a week ago. So I want to share that because that was a huge wake up and aha to me that, okay, the concern about a VA appraiser being a little bit more strict really isn't 100% accurate. And it's not saying that it wasn't with your situation, but it's case by case. And for this, I had, very little money down VA, buying it almost 700,000. Another situation where if I'm looking at the 2 offers and I see almost $300,000 down, conventional, typically I'm usually going to go towards that buyer. Well, what wasn't a known thing would actually kill the loan on the conventional. It was a non-QM buyer. So even though it was conventional, she had a couple lates because she went through a divorce situation. So, and in that divorce situation, she had 2 60-day lates so she can do your traditional conventional. Well, of course, you know, that wasn't something that was touted about, you know what I mean, in terms of, it was presented as a conventional loan, almost 300,000 down, which is very likely to be the case if you're looking at offers. We're normally not going to ask, is this a QM or non-QM? If best case scenario, we get an underwriter approval. But again, just getting back to the most important part of this, the conventional loan, days before closing, pulled the plug. The lender pulled the plug. We were in escrow for over 60 days because it's non-QM. They said, oh, it's too risky of a loan right now. We're pulling out. 5 big lenders pulled out. There were only 2 left. And Kathy, I'm sure you're aware of this. There were only 2 left that were here locally. Everybody's trying to switch over. Now we're supposed to close. So this happens on a Thursday. We're supposed to close on Tuesday, the following Tuesday. Fund on Monday, close on Tuesday. Thursday, we find out for the single mother who's got 2 children, who's excited about moving into a river park where she works literally walking distance from the property. She's moving out of a rough area. Now the whole deal is going to fall apart. And the best I could hear is it's going to take at least another 3 weeks. And I said, there's no way these other 2 lenders are going to still continue to do it. There's no way. They're going to pull the plug. So I said, we're just putting a Band-Aid on it. Luckily, I had another source, and that other source was able to do a private loan at the exact same interest rate as this non-QM with no cost at all, no origination, nothing, just to do it really out of the kindness of their heart. Dennis is a connection through Rio Mesa. I'll share the name offline just because he wants to remain anonymous. But this is where the connections matter so much,
Right.
About, you know, just knowing people. And really that was God sent. But the conventional deal fell through. The VA, no issue on the appraisal, get the offer accepted. And it was a vet on top of that who was the seller. And as stuff is getting rough, they're looking and saying, wow, I want to go with your military buyer. They're like, there is that clause, that FHA VA mandatory clause, that if it doesn't appraise, they can back out even after removing all contingencies. So the agent, very savvy, knew that. But he knew, more importantly, he was able to take a step back and say, look, let's look at the big picture here. People are worried about their jobs right now. People are uncertain whether they can go back to work, right? I have a physical therapist who makes plenty of money. Right now, we're in escrow on another property. His job got suspended indefinitely. That's a $700,000 purchase and a listing at $540,000. All of it's at a halt right now because he has to touch people, right?
We are verifying employment all the way till the end.
Right. So verifying employment all the way through. So who would you rather take, the physical therapist or the military buyer who's got the guaranteed income? You can verify it all online. They have the housing allowance, right? And I'm sharing all these points to emphasize, when you are trying to promote your offer to your military buyer, to a listing agent, on why they need to work with you. Not only are we good at keeping it all together, there's many benefits. And I'd like that if you can really piggyback on why.
Yeah, if I could, Brandon, I just elaborate what you're saying, because Laura and Kathy both made excellent points that tie into this.
Okay.
Laura's perception on the seller's perception of value and appraisability and all that is right on point. Right. One of our biggest challenges in this industry, and Laura and I kind of go back about the same time with this. So we saw the whole market up and down when they wouldn't take offers, they would take offers, all inventory based. But a lot of it's really based on the education on the agents. Do the agents know what they're dealing with? Does the lender involved actually know what they're dealing with? And I think for us now, especially with these escalating values, now when we come out of this, these property values, who knows what they're going to do, right? I think we can assume there's going to be a dip. It's just how much and for how long. How far is it going to drop, and how's it going to rebound under what? Because if, you know, unemployment hits the numbers that they're projecting, it's all consumer confidence, it's just going to have a trickle-down effect. We'll have to reevaluate all that as we go. But in terms of just kind of a common starting point for us as an industry to educate on VA stuff, from lender's perspective to agent's perspective, even title reps or escrow, and really the consumer. The best thing we can do is something like this. Let's talk to our folks. Let's talk to the professionals, talk to the agents, talk to the title folks, talk to the lenders, so we all cohesively can talk to a seller when they get in the position that they fully understand the strengths, what these buyers represent. There is a challenge. Now, part of this challenge goes to the agent and the seller when they list the house to be realistic. Are you going to get on that bandwagon where you can only get that listing by saying, hey, I'll get you this for that house, knowing deep down that house is worth this, but I'll list it here. We'll make it happen. We have to, as an industry, be better about being honest with our clients. If we lose the listing, we lose the listing. What's worse, losing the listing or getting everybody involved, everybody knee deep into this, and it falls out because of appraisability or of some other issue. So for us, as far as setting a tone or a standard, we have to feel comfortable. We can tell that seller, like, hey, you know, I'd love to sell it for X. The problem is it's not worth X. So if we can start with getting the sellers to understand that, and it may take a lender to call, might take an escrow title to get involved at some point. There's many times I'll write an offer and I'll have my lender, I'll call them, whoever I'm working, hey, do you mind talking to that other agent? We may not do a full, you know, cross qualification sometimes, but I'm definitely having somebody talking to somebody. I want to get a feel for that particular buyer's strengths. If I'm on the listing side, if I'm on the buying side, I want to convey my strengths. So there's a reason to do both. But it comes down to the heart of what we're talking about is knowing what the product is, knowing the strength of our product, and really conveying that in a manner that the other side feels comfortable picking when you got A versus B versus C. And right now we know that the employment is a huge factor in this, may not be as guaranteed. Well, look at this veteran or look at this active duty guy. You know, he's got a guaranteed income. He's strong. He may not have that amount. And if you listed it properly, the appraisal is not an issue, you know, regardless it's VA, conventional, whatever. But if we got listed properly, then we're cool. So it really kind of starts with us. I'm just curious what some of your thought, Laura and or Kathy.
Well, the VA loan, like I said before, it's a better loan out there. And unlike conventional, where we're restricted to back-end ratios, VA really looks at residual income. So I've gotten a VA approved with ratios into the 60s. You know, if DU takes it, DU or LP, whatever we run, if we get an accept eligible, that's golden. That's your golden ticket right there. So, you know, it's a little bit different way of qualifying because you do have to watch for the residual income. But if it's there, and there's a formula to figure that out, then you have a very qualified buyer.
Definitely. Laura, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I have two things. Brandon, did you get the name of that appraiser that you used for VA? Because I want to know. I want to be able to request him.
I know it was her. I know it was a female. So she did the appraisal. I don't have her name and number, but yeah, I'm trying to think of another. Dad, I know you had how many VA deals recently just closed or?
Well, 2 closed yesterday. We had 1 buyer, 1 seller. Both of them appraised out. I'm trying to think I can talk with Terry. She might have some actual number. I've kept a couple of appraisers' numbers, but nobody recently, I don't think, I've kept their information.
Dad, none of them came in on the value?
No, every one of them came in at value.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 5 right now we're working, and they all came in at value.
Yeah, it may just, I
just
think an appraiser would have tried a little harder if it was a purchase. Not that, you know, I don't want to put a Band-Aid on it, but you know, you're.
Yeah, and I figured as much. I'm sure that was the case. Also, I wanted to bring up, this was something new for us on this last transaction I did, was that USAA is doing loans now as a military family. I'm sure you're aware that USAA has done insurance for us for forever, and they're fantastic. Great at insurance, but my last buyer used them for their lender. And this was very interesting for me because I accepted it, not really thinking too much about it. But now as the listing agent, because I had just come off the heels of working with my VA buyers, nobody accepting. I wrote about 5 offers and I had a great buyer. Nobody wanted to take the offers. So when I took this listing, we had this VA buyer come in, and I also had, it was a retired Navy chief who was selling his home. So we really kind of went, you know, above and beyond to try to work with the VA buyer. We accepted, he had a USAA loan, and come to find out they won't talk to the listing agent. So this is something just to kind of throw out there. I had access to USAA just because we have an account and I was able to speak with them. But unless you're actually given permission by the buyer themselves, they won't speak to you. So that was new to me. They performed, everything was fine, but it was to a point where I almost pulled the plug on it. And they were really doing a disservice to their buyer by not speaking to the listing agent. So I didn't know if any of you had had any kind of interaction with that before.
Yeah. Dad, anything you'd like to touch on with that one with USA Navy Fed?
No, and I think like Laura, you know, I've had multiple, especially working with a lot of vets, multiple folks who are, I don't want to say they're brainwashed, but they're really indoctrinated to using these organizations, and they're not bad. They both provide a nice service. The challenge is, and for me personally, what I've dealt with a lot of different clients, is getting to look outside that window. I think I mentioned it yesterday about the one who had gone to Texas, and I hooked him up with the Texas Vet Program. Or I didn't hook him up, I recommend he go speak with them. Is that a lot of military folks, for example, the Navy, in case you're not aware of it, you go into boot camp and there's one bank they mandate you institute with, and that's Navy Federal. So it is by their default pushed to them from day one in basic now throughout. So once they get out of basic, they're pretty much already acclimated to the whole Navy Fed brand, their culture, and how they do things. And I wasn't opposed to them, particularly until I got my job as the PFM on base when I shut down Paradise Estates. I'll keep it real quick. One of my primary positions was to contact all of the surrounding, well, some were local, some weren't local, but all of our sailors were coming in with short sales looking down their throat, or foreclosures and loss of homes. Because the security clearance issue, I was the primary counselor for the base, for both bases. They would come and see me, and we would talk about how we're going to remedy this. I would call Navy Fed, and it was like crickets. I couldn't get a decent response to save my hiney. It just wasn't happening. When it gets to where, and I'm not a huge Wells Fargo, B of A fan or any of those guys, Chase especially, but at least with them, I had some positive responses. Navy Fed, I don't remember USA really playing in that, but Navy Fed was the worst. So once the market kind of flipped and I got out of that position and started working with more and more people, whenever Navy Fed comes up, and I see it all the time, I have to tactfully approach that, because I go back to that time when I know they weren't helping our service members, and now they're playing all warm and fuzzy because, hey, we'll give you a loan. We may not service it properly. We're not going to care about you when it hits the fan. So I'm not a particular huge fan of them, although I know they do provide a product and it's fairly competitive, but I see lenders beat them all the time. And USAA, I think, is a similar thing. I mean, they have a pipeline of people coming straight to them. They don't have to provide excellent service. In theory, they say they do, and they do have some good products, but there are better products out there. I look at someone like Kathy, yourself, the fact that you're taking the time to be here now, the fact that you already show a passion and a commitment to working with vets, you're the kind of person I want to build a relationship with.
Yes.
More importantly, not just build a relationship, I want to get your name out and people like you to other agents, because I don't need to keep a secret.
Right.
What I want to do is share as
We're
much.
local, so
yeah,
you know, that's
feel free.
But
that's
the value I get, Kathy, in sharing your name or someone like you, is exactly kind of what Laura and I, what we've been talking about, and Brandon as well. When down the road at some point, if I have a listing and a buyer shows up with an agent and I see your name on it, I've already got a sense of reassurance right there, because I understand your commitment. So I don't want to keep a secret.
I'm happy to talk to both agents. And I often do. Sometimes I have buyer's agents that will ask me, you know, hey, send me a pre-approval. And by the way, can you call the listing agent? Absolutely. You know, I don't have a problem with that at all. there's certain things I can't say, but I will
Right,
talk to
right.
them and give them updates. Absolutely.
Well, and half of, and again, my opinion, half of the battle is the fact that you recognize certain qualities right off the bat. The fact that you do or don't do something just kind of enforces my thought. But what I want to share, because I think this is where we hurt as an industry. And we all know this. Ultra competitive, right? Ultra competitive. It's like, I'll keep that to myself. I'm going to worry about me
No.
and my family and my clients. When actually I'm hurting myself by doing this. Excuse me.
Right.
I'm not getting emotional. I'm old and fat and I got stuff coming up.
No, I'm from the rule of the more you share with people and the more everybody knows, the easier the job is for everyone.
And it will come back to you at some point, because there will be, if you're doing any kind of business, small community, we all know everybody. We kind of bounce around the same circles. At some point, it will come back to benefit you or to harm you if you elect to go down either one of these paths. Meaning, if I'm going to keep a secret and just work this deal, it is what it is. Something just popped up. Oh, that's from you. But if I'm going to share that and I want to get that out there, then there's a better chance that, because I will have a buyer at some point, and Laura or someone like Laura will have a listing, and I want that to marry up. I want that to fit. And the more that I know that you get it, the better chance I have of my client being taken care of.
Absolutely.
So Kathy, can you share, can everybody see the flyer that I just shared right now?
Yeah.
Working with VA clients? Kathy, do you mind just kind of breaking that down? Explain.
Yeah.
I pulled all three of them up, so I'll share them just to give you some time because it's really important as people, start working with military buyers, or just to understand this, as we talk about first-time use versus subsequent use. I
have a hard time saying that word too.
Right? Just any purchase after the fact. So a VA loan can't just be used once. It can be used multiple times, but the cost change. So can you break that down for us?
Yes. So for example, the purchases. So there's the regular military, the reserves, and the National Guard, of course. And then if you notice, for the first time they use it, they do have to pay the funding fee at 2.30 unless they're disabled already. But then if they go to refinance and it's not as streamlined, let's say, or they buy another house, then the second time around, then their funding fee is higher, which is a 3.60 times the loan amount. So that's where you get the 8,000, 10,000, whatever the amount is, of the funding fee. Now the funding fee can be financed into the loan, so it's not really coming out of their pocket, but it's still there. It's going to increase that, and you cannot go over the limit. Like, let's say, for example, our conforming limit right now, let's just, 500, it's 500 and something.
Yes.
So it has to be under that. So I recently had a purchase where when the limit was 417, I had to keep the loan amount and the funding fee under 417 in order for her to qualify. So those are some of the things that, as a loan officer, you have to know these things. Not just throw out a pre-approval letter and then decide, oh, I didn't consider the funding fee, now you don't qualify, or maybe a seller can contribute towards the funding fee. That's an option. And then, of course, when you go to refinancing that's not a streamline, then you have to pay that funding fee as well. The streamlines are capped at 0.50, which is not bad. But anytime you refi to do cash out, or you refi from a conventional to a VA, like Diane did, then you do have to pay that funding fee if you're not exempt.
Awesome. That was great. And then the limit there is no limit now, right? In terms of.
Yeah, I know with my company, we can go up to $1 million.
Right.
And then again, depending on the county limit and ratios, I mean, we can't just give everybody $1 million, you have to qualify for that.
Right.
And then, but they do get a break on the funding fee if they choose to do a down payment. If you notice, your funding fee can be cut down by a down payment if you choose to do that.
That's great. Yeah, that's good to see that. There's another flyer I want to share with everybody on the non-allowables, because many agents aren't aware of what's allowed to be paid and not. So let me pull that up for you really quick and get that. I didn't lose anybody yet, right? I still got you here.
And that's very important to know the fees, because banks, brokers and direct lenders, they have different pricing. So
Right.
if you are working with a broker that's charging an origination fee, then right there's your 1 to 1.5% of that, and it's very important. With us as being a direct lender, we don't charge origination fees, so that can be applied more towards the other remaining fees that the veteran is allowed to pay.
Awesome. Yeah, let me see if is it showing up yet on the?
Yes,
Okay.
but
So,
not in its entirety.
okay. Now let's see if we can get.
Hey, Brandon.
Uh-huh.
Guys, I gotta hop off. I have to hop on another call at 11 o'clock. So
No
I
worries.
appreciate all the information that you guys given me today.
Yeah, and it's recorded as well. So I'll send you the link once it's all wrapped up.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for
Take
joining
care,
us.
Dennis.
Bye, Dennis.
Have a wonderful day.
You
Take care.
too.
All
Stay
right.
safe.
So just real quick, can you see the allowable versus the non-allowable?
Yeah,
I can.
I can see it.
You guys can see it all? Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess just a couple things to point out that I know for real estate agents, that was new information to me on the MRP. Two big ones: can't do a buyer broker contract. So we can't charge a veteran a commission or mandate that they cover a difference. So if you had a 2.5% buyer broker contract with your client and it's a military VA client, they do not enforce and do not allow you to try to collect directly from your buyer. So that's a big one. And then another one is also the processing fee. I know for many brokerages, they charge a processing fee for many of their clients. Basically, junk fees or any additional fees, I don't want to call it a junk fee, but you're not allowed to charge your buyer that. So it's very important, if you haven't done it or you're thinking about continuing education, look into that MRP, that military relocation professional designation. A lot of great information. And if you're doing business in Oxnard, Channel Islands, Port Hueneme, Ventura, Camarillo, I mean, it goes all the way throughout the county. And Dad, maybe you can share some of those stats of how many veterans we have. I know my level of awareness is up higher, and I mentioned it on the video, but I swear just about every other property I show, especially in Oxnard and Ventura, I see a flag, and I'm meeting a veteran, meeting military, and people are literally coming into the open houses just based off the signs. So you want to know this. You want to know this information, and you want to make sure that you're giving them accurate information as well, because I'll be the first to admit, as much as I thought I knew, I knew very little. I mean, very little in terms of the grand scope. So it is important that we do that so that we properly serve our clients. Kathy, would you mind showing or speaking about more of the non-allowable fees that a veteran cannot pay for?
Well, you mentioned earlier the termite report fee.
Correct.
And that's minimal. So that's one thing.
$75,
I
right?
think the most important one here is that 1%. That's why I brought that up before that. Because when a buyer is dealing with, you don't know what lender they're working with. So it's very important to know, are they getting charged an origination fee?
Okay.
Because some lenders do and some don't. And then of course, we always need a termite report and a clearance. So you cannot waive that. And let's see. The remainder is probably all self-explanatory on here.
Yeah, no, but it's good. It does show processing fee on there, so I'm glad I recalled that correctly, because I remember that one really stuck out to me. Just because I know it's very common for those processing fees to be charged, and so
Right.
just make sure you speak to your manager or broker and make sure that gets waived, which we did do in our Wood Ranch office. We would waive those fees in certain situations. I did not realize, though, that was something that was an absolutely no, that they cannot pay for. So it shouldn't be something even you as an agent is having to pay any part of that. That should be waived. So, and then just any other, termite is a big one, and kind of the confusion, I guess, on termite. Section 1 and Section 2 clearance typically, or I shouldn't say typically, have to happen. but it's not required for the buyer or the seller isn't required to pay for those. It's still negotiable repairs. Is that correct, Kathy?
Yes, that is correct. VA doesn't specify who can do the repairs. They just need to be done.
Right.
So if the buyer agrees to repair something, you know, maybe after loan approval might be the time to review that. You know, once they have loan approval, I wouldn't have them fix anything beforehand.
And in terms of some of the same things that you've seen come up on a VA appraisal report, Kathy, what would be some of those items that a VA appraiser, because not only are they checking the value, they're checking the habitability of the property. And if you can also share, and I know I'm building more questions into this, but just with conventional loans do also require a habitability requirement, correct? If they see something that the house is in, you know, not able to live in, or it's missing a furnace or a heater, a conventional appraiser can call that out as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Pretty much now the rules on appraisals pretty much are health and safety, health and safety, health and safety, straight across the board. But VA will, you know, I don't know, maybe if you get an old-fashioned appraiser, we'll be looking for the old ways of doing this. But I haven't had a lot of issues with VA.
Not a lot that you've seen.
No, not any that I can. I haven't.
If I could, real quick, I think the fact that, and I appreciate you guys clarifying that there's a very minimal difference in terms of the VA versus the conventional appraisal. Our challenge is getting that understood in the industry, because again, we go back to the agents not being aware of that. That's our challenge, is when I get a buyer and we're trying to get this thing on the table to be considered, and then I know in the back of their head, you know, that these are prime concerns for them, and now they're going to lean automatically towards that competing offer, which may not be the best offer. That's where we have to work with this. But if I could, real quick, you mentioned one of the fees right off the bat about that they can't pay. And I just saw this literally within the last 2 weeks on a house we're selling in Camarillo. 2 Navy veterans buying it, never heard of the agent, which isn't a big deal. He writes us up, and Terry and I are sitting down going over the contract. And one of the first thing I see is a commission deficiency mandate that he was going to have sellers or the buyers, obviously it's going to be the buyer because our seller was never going to pay the difference. And it wasn't like we were offering a subprime, whatever the word is, a substandard commission. It was 2.5%. So at 2.5%, these poor young vets, and I saw the bio, young, good-looking family, 2 small children, and this agent's getting 2.5% on a 600 and what we go out at? I can't even think. 615 house. 615, 2.5%, and he's going to get these people to commit to probably another 0.5%, I'm assuming, if he's trying to get to 3%. So I sit there and I see this, and it's like, how do I make my point to this guy what he's doing? And this is the problem. This is the meat of what I'm trying to get out here, is to take care of these folks. It doesn't matter if they're my client. I just see someone who's a young family who's trying to do the best for their situation. The fact that they're veterans, to me, that's just icing on the cake, right? I want to help the family. They're veterans. I want to help them even more. And then I see some clown write up the sheet, and it's like, oh, what is this guy thinking? And it's some team I never heard of, and I'm assuming that's their default verbiage, what they put in these offers. But it's ridiculous. It's freaking ridiculous.
Well,
so that's the stuff.
Any VA underwriter will not allow that.
How did you respond?
We counted out our seller wasn't paying for any of it. This guy had stuff like a sewer inspection and or all repairs. Camarillo doesn't mandate. There's no roots. There's no tree issues there. So again, I think it's, when I looked at all the stuff he had on there, it was just, I think it was defaulted verbiage they put in there. But you can't, in good conscience, sit there and look at this young family and charge them an additional commission. Now, if you want to be a listing agent and you can negotiate a 6% commission and you keep 3.5, and give out 2.5, hey, that cooperating broker still get 2.5%. I don't have a problem with that. If your seller is willing to pay it, because listing agents sometimes do get underpaid with the amount of work they put out, amount of marketing they put out. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is when you jack these costs onto your buyers because you can. You know, the old adage, why does a dog lick himself? Because he can. Why does an agent do that kind of stuff? Because he can. That's just wrong.
Oh,
And that's the kind of stuff that hurts us as an industry. And that's the kind
it
of stuff
does.
that we
Yeah.
have to try to do our best to get the word out. It's just unacceptable. So I don't know. I'm still struggling with that on how do I may just call his broker and just say, are you aware? And I know you are. And if not, then shame on you. And if you are aware, then shame on you twice, right? Either way, it's not good for that broker, for that policy to be implemented in this transaction. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff that when you mentioned that right off the bat, I saw that and that popped into my head. It's just ridiculous.
Great point. And that's what we need to educate on. I wanted, Dad, if you don't mind sharing, because some of the key points that you brought up in the video, which if you guys haven't watched it, the YouTube video that we put together, it's about an hour long for the interview. A lot of good information. Please feel free to watch that, share that, anybody that could be helpful for. But what I wanted to touch on, just kind of final thing, you know, there's many pros of working with military buyers. And one of them being, you know, we didn't really talk too much about the housing allowance, but if you can explain a little bit of that. So it's guaranteed money that comes in towards housing. There's a shortage of housing. So touched on that. Also the fact that many military buyers, just in terms of their attention to detail, their timeliness, that when they commit to something, they're going to follow through. So if you talk about trying to pick the right buyer of somebody who's likely to be loyal to committing to what they start, as well as the pressure, they have to move. In a situation when they PCS, and it typically happens every 2 to 3 years, but this creates a huge opportunity right now. So that's why we're spending the time. This isn't just a promotion of veteran home services and what it is that we're passionate and what we believe in. This is about truly educating the industry, regardless of what company you're with or where you plan to do your business, but to make sure that you impact as many military families as possible and help create, as you look for, people look for, okay, where do I want to focus my marketing and my find new business? This is a huge opportunity in this area. So if you can just share some of those points, I think that'd be a great way to wrap it up.
You know, you stared something that just popped into my head. And my thought is, I love the venue. I love the fact that we have basically endless time right now. I mean, if we've got this time on our hand, let's get some value out of it, right?
Right.
So what's the thought on, and it can start right here. So this is a great format. It's a great brainstorming kind of a session, right? What's a thought on getting folks like Kathy and Laura and anybody else, doesn't matter what company, we put out, somehow we start the survey or the semi poll, if you want, to get a feel for maybe 5-10 minute videos, professionals across the line. What do you see happen? What are your thoughts? It doesn't have to be just VA. What's your thoughts on the industry? What's your thoughts on the market? What's your thoughts on taking care of people? What are your concerns? What are your reassurances? But just kind of an open forum brainstorm session within the industry to kind of, one, draw us together, but two, to clear up some of these kind of things. Right. You know, we need to have the word out there that, okay, hey, we're all in this together. Ultimately, we're all in the same team. I don't care what company you work for. The same team is our community, right? The same team is trying to ensure that people are able to put a roof over their babies' heads if it's the right time for them. The same team of trying to ensure all the resources are being utilized properly and people aren't getting taken advantage of. But you could do these little mini 10-minute scenarios with one or two or a bunch of different agents, put them out there just to get the conversation going, right? Get the conversation going, try to come up with some solutions to some of these and try to give people a sense of some control over what's going on. Because right now, part of our problem is we feel helpless. We don't have any control. We're subjected to the daily blitz of media and how many deaths we're seeing. And after a while, it starts messing with your head. So one way to combat that is, what can we do proactively within the industry? We'll start with that, to get out there to spread the word, to educate people, to start building that confidence back up within ourselves, if not even the community. So I would just offer that, you know, we develop some kind of a format. We start publicizing, getting it out there. Bring anybody in who wants to listen. Get all the big hitters, get all the people who haven't sold a single house, and everybody in between. Give them a 5-10 minute platform. Let them speak their piece. Let them try to educate us. I'd love to sit and listen to these big hitters. I'm not looking for ways to generate business. I'm looking for ways for them to create a sense of control over this pandemic of fear. Right. Our housing industry is about to take a major hit. which isn't just our lifestyle. That's kind of the core of our economy, right? We want to see jobs come back with it for us, because we can't control a lot. It needs to start right here. And it always starts with education and working together.
Right.
So anything we could do like that. And I would say, let's keep 10, 15 minutes and just blast them. Get as many people involved, get them out there and start sharing them. Talk to our colleagues, talk to some of the people we compete with. Hey, friendly competition isn't going to kill anybody. It makes us better. It makes us more in tune with our weaknesses, so we can work on those and capitalize on our strengths. You know, that's what it's all about ultimately.
Well, I'll try to see if I can send out a poll, or if, you know, I'll actually put my email on here. If there's any topics or ideas that you would like to focus on, if you want to share what your thoughts are, if you want to share a video, or if you want to have a specific discussion, you know, about what's happening in the market, to make sure we're all aware of it. But there's so many different myths I feel we were able to kind of dispel and just talk about honest conversation. That's what it's about. You're going to see two sides to every situation. And it's very easy to just focus on the side that you want to focus on, but it's important to hear everything, everybody's perspective, where everyone's coming from. And then at the end of it, we all become stronger. We become more educated for our clients, and then we can help lead them with the proper information. Because there's so much information out there. There's only so much that we're all capable of understanding through our own personal experience. So this is key to do this.
If we think it was competitive prior to this thing,
right,
imagine coming out of this to competition. Just think about it. Imagine everybody's going to lock on to, I got mine, and they're going to just hold on to it. We need to kind of head that off right in the beginning and say, look, you know, hey, I want you to succeed.
Right.
The only way I'm going to succeed is if you succeed, and then I'm going to grab a hold of your coattail and try to drag along.
Right.
Right.
But we have to develop that kind of a mindset, because if we don't, everybody's going to go into a little spot, and we're going to be like that little hermit crab that comes out and cherry picks his rocks and goes back in his hole. It's going to be us. We'll be the hermit crabs of real estate. Hey, there's a company name.
No, that was great. Is there anything else, just with the question that I asked you about, you know, the VA?
I don't even know which question was, Brandon. I went off on my tangent. I couldn't tell you what you asked me.
I could tell it was a squirrel, you know.
Yeah, really.
No, the question was just about, so, you know, why, you know, why would it be in somebody's interest to get their MRP designation? Why would
okay.
Right. Why is there value there with working with a military buyer? And what are some of the things that you're going to advocate if you're speaking to a listing agent trying to get an offer accepted?
No, that's a great question. I think you and Laura and Skip just went, I don't know, is Skip still on here?
Yeah, we still got Skip.
All right, Skip. Hang in there, buddy. Skip's a retired chief also, in case you're unaware. He just finished his MRP within the last few days, and I applaud all of you guys for doing it. I personally,
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I personally think it's especially for this topic, sake of this conversation, I think it's one of the most valued certifications you can get. The value for the time spent, the money spent. I know it's not cheap, and that's going to be one of the challenges for some people is, hey, I got to come up with a couple extra $100. And maybe, and I don't know, maybe contact DRE and see if they've got some reduction in some of these prices right now. Everybody else is kind of pulling back on some of the costs on things. They might do it as well.
Right now.
Yeah. But
It's
the value
30% cheaper now.
There you go. Hey, that helps. That helps.
Yeah.
And then maybe they can even waive some of the application fees when you submit for it. I know they charge you another little fee there, but as far as the content of the certification, the value comes really in an awareness that you now have. I mean, you're the perfect example. And Lauren maybe, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you picked up some things you didn't see as a Navy wife, because I know I did, and I did it for X amount of years. So we all get a different insight into a different aspect of it. So when you go to either an agent and try to emphasize, the need for it, or you go to a potential client or a principal in the transaction, i.e. the seller or buyer, whichever side you're on, I think what comes with it is they just don't look at it as a set of numbers, a set of letters after our name, Joe Smith, MRP. Well, here's what this MRP really represents. Represents an understanding some of the things, not all of them, some of the things these guys are going through, some of the challenges these guys and girls are facing, but also some of the strengths that they really represent that don't make it to the surface a lot of times. The commitment, the mindset, the fact that they tend to be more focused. They're more locked in on what their goals are. They're more goal-oriented and solution-focused to hit those goals versus just the average emotional reactionary consumer who is told you got to buy because the rates are doing this, or you got to buy because the price is doing this, and they jump into it, and then before you know it, they pull back out, right? We all see that roller coaster of emotions when they buy a house. And then when the fruition of opening the escrow to closing the escrow starts taking shape, then the emotions come back and reality sets in and they cancel. MRP clients veteran clients are less likely to do that because of just the nature of how they're wired. MRPs understand that. So the fact that it gives them a sense of knowledge that other agents may not have, I think that's the real value in it, because there's so many different things that these guys are going through that I can't comprehend it. I retired in '99 from the service. I really don't know what they deal with, right? It's a whole different world, whole different service. So I think it's a very valued certification. Yeah.
The one, just to add what you were saying, I just completed mine, and one light bulb that came on for me when I was showing property to several different active duty military families recently. Being in real estate as long as I had, and I know you do the same, where you would set up a list of properties you would show, and you kind of just, not that you take your time, but I mean, you would show maybe 3 or 4, not to be overwhelming to your clients, but just so that they can keep in mind, what properties they saw, just to, you don't want to overwhelm your clients. When I was showing property to my military clients, it was just like I would send a list and they would send me 15, 20 properties, 10 properties. And to me, it was like, oh my God, that's a lot. And I was doing it, but at the same time, I was like, this is way too much. What am I doing? And I kind of felt like this is crazy. When I went through the course, I realized that I was doing everything right. This is the way to do it, because they know exactly what they're looking for. They have a set in their mind of, it's not their dream home. This is what they need. This is what they're looking for. They already know what their needs are. It's not a want, it's not a dream home. It's, you know what I mean? It's a completely different way of home buying, I guess.
Right.
And so when I took the course, it just kind of, that light bulb came on for me, like, wow, I'm glad I was doing it the right way anyways. So, because at first I kind of felt like I was losing my mind, like, why am I showing so many properties? I would never do this for any other client. What am I doing? But then later when I took the course, I was like, wow, I'm glad I did that, because obviously, this is what you need to do, because they know what they're looking for. You don't second guess that. So I was glad I took the course.
It's good to hear.
Good.
Yeah. And it's it just piggybacking off what you're saying there, Laura. I had the same feeling going through it, that it helped me have more patience. It's a different mindset with, they know that they're only going to be there 2 to 3 years in most situations. So they're not buying for the same reason. Equity is very important. Are they appreciating in value? Are they going to be able to make money? Are they going to be able to afford to be able to sell the property in the future? How much money do you have to sell it for at a higher date? These are things that are very specific to a military buyer coming in, because otherwise it's not worth it for them to buy right now. If you're in a declining market and you're purchasing, and you can't 3 years from now be able to recoup the cost of just affording commissions, then it may be best to try to rent. Well, the problem and the issue, and the reason why many military actually look even stronger towards purchasing, is there's a shortage, and it's very competitive for housing. There's a shortage of housing on the bases and also in the surrounding area. We lived in Navy housing, but you have a waiting list. It's not as ideal, and they do get a housing allowance. And for officers and for, even enlisted, they get a lot more money here because we're in the top 20 most expensive areas in the country. So you're getting somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000 a month in housing. that they can put towards an investment of a purchase. But it is exactly what you said, Laura, with it's a different mindset. So I was showing many more properties, getting frustrated on my end, like, why aren't they just committing? Why aren't they doing it? Why, typically I only need to show 3 or 4 homes. And since I always showed the best value on the market, I know if they don't pull the trigger on the 3 to 4, that they're really not that serious. That's not the same with the military family or military buyer. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that's a great point and a huge light bulb that went off going through the MRP, because they really try to get you to understand the mindset of the military family and what they're going through, as well as deployment. And they get into some other things with that, the difference between deployment and then PCSing, with relocating in a different location. One's more permanent, one's temporary, but also an impact of what you could be working with one spouse while the service member is in Japan or another country trying to purchase a home. So all different types of scenarios that it's good to be aware of.
Right.
Any last questions or any final thoughts that anybody would like to share? And Lisa, I see you and Skip. I know, and you asking questions on our trainings that we used to have. Lisa, I miss doing those.
Hi, Lisa.
Can you hear us?
Hi, guys.
I see you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can see you great.
Hi, guys. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
good to see you.
Your hair looks much better than our hair over here too. So
hey, what are you talking about?
I just want to say, I love always Brandon's trainings, and definitely anytime you send me a text, I'm always like, all right, you need to get on, because I know you're going to bring good stuff and valuable. Kathy, hi. So grateful. For me, this is so good, and I didn't get a chance to watch the YouTube video, so that's what I'm going to do next, because I want to see what you and your dad discuss. I'm kind of new to the business. This is kind of my 3rd year, but I'm recently been, I have like kind of my first VA buyers that I'm working with, and some of my sphere that's been reaching out to me, and their VA, and I want to make sure that I have knowledge for them and just value for them, working with them. So for me, that's kind of why I jumped on this call, because I want to know all of that. The current VA buyer that I do have, I know that funding fee is something that they're in hopes that it's getting waived, because they have a disability claim on pending. That's what I'm being told. So all of this is, really new to me, but just thank you guys so much for just sharing all of your information. It's been good so far.
Yeah, any time, and any questions that you can think of that that you'd like to.
Yeah. So on that, maybe Kathy, you would know. So their lender, kind of like an out-of-state lender that that they're working with, that they've had since before they came with me. So they're under the impression that their funding fee will be rolled into their loan, and then if the disability claim, they're pretty confident that will be something, I guess, that they'll have, and that it will be waived. And to me, I thought, okay, that's weird. Like, shouldn't you know that it's going to be waived first?
Right. Yeah, because it has to be included in the loan. You can't do loan documents. You got to know which way you're going to draw docs, with the funding fee or without. So I last year I had a veteran that applied, and they were in the middle of their disability, and it was taking forever. It'd been a few years, so they gave up, and he went ahead and bought the home and paid the funding fee. But then he came back a year later, rates were better, refinanced him, and now he didn't have to pay it. So he was pleased with that. So that may happen to your buyer. He may have to close. If he wants this house now, he may have to close with the funding fee. And then, because I don't know what happens with VA afterwards. I can't say, oh yeah, VA will refund you. No, we can't say that. So
if I could add one thing. At this time, and I don't know how this is going to play out with all the things that are going on, but Congresswoman Brownlee is on the Senate Armed Forces Service Committee. And she's a congresswoman. It's not the Senate, but she's on one of the subcommittees for the services. She's a huge veteran advocate. I've actually talked to her staff, and one of her main guys, Mr. Martinez, ironically enough, we were in the same squadron together years ago up in well, whatever, that's a long story. But my point is, what I would do if I have a client who paid a funding fee, especially if his if he can show his file is before or during escrow and they can't get it retroactively paid back, give them a call. See if you can get the congressperson's office involved. It can't hurt you any. And just say, hey, can you look into maybe applying a little bit of pressure? You'd be surprised what a call from a congressperson's staff will do to a department in terms of maybe pushing the envelope. But I know it's not the perfect answer, but at least it's something. And, and if nothing else, it gives your client a chance to at least voice their, their concerns or their thoughts on it. But I wouldn't I wouldn't arbitrarily go with, whatever black and white it says on these websites or the manuals. Although I did see something the other day talking about retroactive payment. So I think it's being considered if it already hasn't been implemented.
Yeah, when we order the certificate of eligibility, it'll tell us if he's exempt or not. And so it does help if we can probably go into the VA website, but it really is up to the veteran to go in there and state their case and get that eligibility corrected so that we can order an amended certificate of eligibility. That's what we have to do.
So if they were to close on it and then they're going to take on the funding fee, and then let's say they close escrow, they finance that. So, and then let's say down the road, it's something that would get waived. Would they have to refinance that or? Well,
no, you don't refinance just for that reason. But if the next time around, whether they're refinancing or buying, then we order an updated certificate of eligibility, and hopefully by then it says that they're exempt. But I don't know what VA does. I can look, I can ask around, I can go to my underwriters and find out if we have any say in that. But as far as I know right now, if the certificate of eligibility says that they're not exempt, then we have to close the loan with the funding fee.
And that's what they seem like that they're okay with, but I just thought that's odd, and again, that's where I'm just trying to, I want to make sure that they're being told one thing. I really don't know. So if I can, give them anything, other helpful information, I guess
they can contact VA directly and see if they can push to get it any faster.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question though. And I wouldn't know what to do in that situation if I had that same thing happening right now. So the first person I'd be calling would be my dad. I said, all right, Dad, what do I do? Do with many things, not just real estate problems, any type of comes up. Dad's the first one to hear about it. So luckily I have that open communication, but just know, and I'm sure Kathy, you'd be open. I was asking earlier, if you can share your information on the text chat just for everybody.
Oh, okay.
You also speak Spanish as well, right, Kathy?
Yes, I do.
I know you helped a few of our agents in the Wood Ranch office. I believe Debbie and a few others that were newer agents that were starting out that really appreciated just your attention to detail, your communication. You always made clients feel good just in terms of explaining things and breaking it down. So you're definitely a great resource for all of us to have. And when this all gets cleared up, and we may have to do a Zoom meeting, but we can, we'll get together so we can talk about how we can do some business together.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and you got my flyers. So feel free to share those flyers with anyone in your office that, may need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions that you had, Lisa, or anybody else that's on this?
No, I'm good for now. Thanks, guys.
Good. Cool.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll look for your future ones.
Yeah, Skip, if you have anything, feel free to share it. And then Dad, any final thoughts?
No, I appreciate everybody's time. You guys just stay safe.
Be safe.
You and your families, just be careful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, guys.
Bye, guys.
You guys have a good
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Brenda.
Safe.
No problem. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. You're welcome to stay on too, Skip.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to punch out. Hey,
All right,
thanks
big guy.
again.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it.
Thank you. You have a
Hey,
good one.
Skip, take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you.